Everyone, welcome back to the Sports in the Mitten podcast. I am Thomas Bendit, joined here by Adam Biggers. Been a couple weeks since I've been on the podcast, Adam. How's everything going? Just been kind of a hectic schedule for me personally.
Yeah, actually, I made a couple jokes on Twitter. I said and during one of the shows, I said Thomas is busy doing lawyer stuff right now. He's got other obligations, but yeah, glad to have you back. And now that real quick, before we get started, a lot of things are going to be happening with the show. We're pretty excited. We're not going to go into too many details, but we're gonna take the next leap with the show. FanRag Sports, getting behind us, and just had a great conversation. And we appreciate all the viewership, all the listeners, throughout the past 3 years, and it's been steady growth. And I'm really excited about this spring and the summer, what's going to happen with the show. And again, appreciate the continued support from Keith and Tim at Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor. So I'm excited, and there's a lot to talk about, Thomas. Yes, because you and I haven't chatted in a couple weeks. We're going to talk about Michigan basketball, player draft stock, the latest on Wagner, DJ Wilson, Derek Walton a little bit. We'll talk about Michigan football. Excuse me. Recapping a little bit of the Rome trip. I don't want to get into too much old news, but I do want to kind of focus on the 2018 class and go over the offers and recent commits, because the Wolverines are doing some work on the recruiting trail, and I have a couple other news and notes. And actually, one final thing, Thomas, before we dive into it, I want to congratulate the Mott Bears. Good season, missed the playoffs by 1 year, by one game rather. And Evan Gates, freshman right-handed pitcher, had a hell of a season. I believe it was like 4-2, 5-2, a 2.45 earned run. Really talented kid. He's going to be one of the better players on the for the Bears next year, during the sophomore season. But I just posted his throwing session on my YouTube page. So if you're into baseball, if you're a coach, if you know coaches, spread it around. Evan Gates out of Roseville, hell of an arm. He tops out at 91, 6'1", 195 pounds. He throws gas, and he's only going to get better in the years to come. So that was my little local Mott baseball plug right there. So what do you want to start with? I'll give you the courtesy, since it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you want to start with? Basketball, football?
I mean, at least for me, I kind of want to dive. I'm a basketball guy, so I usually want to dive into basketball. But but the NBA Combine has been going on the last couple of days. Certainly to the in-state Michigan schools are three big guys there, and that's Moritz, Wagner, DJ Wilson, and Derek Walton, all from the Wolverines out in I want to say Chicago, I believe it's typically in. Regardless, they're all competing in the Combine in some form or fashion. They haven't necessarily all participated in all of the events, but they're all out there. They're all talking to teams, and they're all trying to improve their draft stock, obviously. Coming in, I mean, obviously, Walton is going to be either drafted or undrafted. He doesn't have the option to return to school at this point, whereas Wagner and Wilson do, and certainly would have a massive impact on Michigan if they come back, or if they leave. Michigan can go from a potential Big Ten title contender to a NCAA bubble team, depending on how these decisions kind of shake out. And it is worth noting as too, just as a side note, I don't know if we touched on this, but Michigan picked up a transfer from Ohio a couple weeks ago. Simmons, a point guard, really productive guy over in the MAC. And he's actually declared for the draft as well. I don't know if you saw this, but yeah, I would be shocked if he actually went into the draft, because he's not really a big-time prospect. Right. But his name's in there, so it's worth mentioning. But I would say the breaking news, so to speak, as far as the Combine goes, is that DJ Wilson decided to opt out of the 5-on-5 drills that they do, which is essentially, for those who don't follow the Combine, is just a basketball game. They just play, they rotate guys in, and see what you can do in front of some scouts and with a lot of pressure on you. And Wilson opted out of it, which according to his people, according to Michigan, it was an injury issue. I don't want to say the guy's lying. I don't want to say his staff is lying because, he may have an injury. I certainly am not there looking at his leg every morning. But I'm not buying it personally. I don't know. Adam, are you buying it? Because I see this as a sign he feels confident in where he's going to go.
I know that we have seen pre-existing conditions, with DJ, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not at the combine. I've been kind of here locally and, diving into Michigan football, recruiting, that kind of stuff. So I don't feel like I'm really in the best position to say that, unfortunately, to whether or not to.
That's fair. Yeah.
I do think though, when it comes to an injury, unless there are several like red flags that kind of suggest, okay, maybe this guy's really not. I do think that we have to be careful when assuming, especially, just going back and not saying that you're doing this in any form or fashion, but like with the Jabril thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not as informed with DJ Wilson as I was with the Jabril thing. Yeah. So, but with that being said, I do think that being careful. I don't want to assume that DJ Wilson wasn't injured. I want to assume that what DJ Wilson said and what
That's
Michigan said is on the up and up, and that is the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we should throw out again. This is
call me naive on this one. I don't know.
This is just 100% my speculation here as to because the combine has become a different event over the last few years. The biggest top prospects don't go because they already feel comfortable in where they're going to get drafted, where they're going to go, and frankly, all they can do is hurt their stock. And right. And I should preface this with I'm looking at Draft Express right now, their 2017 mock draft. DJ Wilson right now is 30th on their draft board, which it would put him at the very last pick in the first round. I don't believe Wagner is not in their top 60. So theoretically, if that projection was correct, Michigan's only draft pick would be Wilson. I don't know if they're assuming Wagner's going to come back or not, but he's not in their top 60 at the moment. But I would say as far as Wilson goes, I think he's moved into the first round over the last couple of weeks. That's how the impressions I'm getting. And at this point, I think he's leaning towards going to the NBA, which I think is a perfectly fine situation, especially if he's going to get drafted in the first round. I feel like Wagner's going to come back. And as far as the other two, as I mentioned, Simmons, I would be beyond shocked if he stayed in the draft pool. And as far as Walton goes, I don't think he's going to get drafted. I think he will get a summer league deal, though, and he'll have a shot to make a roster next fall.
Yeah, I could see that for Derek. And here, the one thing that I think, because, and this isn't a knock on Derek, but let's talk about NBA point guards. He's undersized. He's not overwhelmingly, he doesn't jump out to me in one area when it comes to NBA athleticism, but there is one part that I do think that we can't discount, and that's like that grind. We saw it with Derek, the leadership thing. I mean, I'm not saying being an NBA rookie, you can't come in, you're not the man anymore. You're nobody essentially, right? And
yeah.
But that attitude, I like Derek's work ethic. So I mean, like for instance, just going back with like some good Michigan State point guards like Kalen Lucas. I mean, Kalen was great in college, right? In the NBA, dime a dozen. I mean, he's a guy that has done well in the D League, and so that's kind of the trail that I'm looking for. Where Kalen, I think, had success because he is undersized. I mean, he did have a lot of speed. Pretty good athleticism. He can score, and that's just kind of where he is. I mean, with Derek, I don't know if I see NBA future overseas. Possibly being a good, and maybe later in his career working his way to kind of a reserve role in the NBA. I don't know, but immediately when I look, it's not like when I look at DJ or Mo and I'm like, okay, NBA body, polish up what you can do, and that's NBA skill set. It's not their fault that they're big and they can do that. Just like it's not Derek's fault that he's 6 foot. or what are they 6'1", 6 foot? They list them at that.
Yeah,
I feel like
right around there.
6 foot is fair. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
with Michigan State, they were listing Kalen Lucas at like 6'1", and I was like, "There's no way." I mean,
Yeah,
I saw literally like eye to eye with Kalen. I mean,
mhm.
so yeah. On that note, I think what's going to keep Derek in there, and what's going to be his best chance at success is going to be his attitude and his work ethic. Because I mean, frankly, let's be honest. He doesn't do anything that really is just blows you away when you start thinking NBA level point guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I as far as that, I don't want to dive into Wagner and Wilson that much. I know everybody's wondering about their decision, but I feel like we're just doing the same thing over and over again. You know, we all know they're both neither of them are guaranteed, lottery picks or something, but they're both intriguing prospects. I mean, that's why they got invited to the combine in the first place. And the truth of the matter is, for those two, it's just about, when they make their decision. Are they going to go or they aren't? Or are they going to return? But for Walton, though, I think his best case scenario is what Yogi Ferrell did last year in the NBA. 4-year player at Indiana, outstanding senior season. Really a lot of similarities to how Walton played as well. He was kind of like a souped up version of Walton. I would say Walton's like last 10 games or so, Walton was right on that same level, maybe even a little bit better. But overall, I would say Yogi Ferrell was a little bit better, but they played a similar style. They're both very heady players. They can shoot, they can pass, but they're not guys who are going to score 20 points at the basket, something like that. But Ferrell did not – I don't believe he got drafted. He got his chance in the summer league, and then he got picked up on one of these short I think it was like a 10-day contract by the Dallas Mavericks. Had a great performance in there, and he got signed to a legitimate deal now. If you're hoping Walton can make it in the NBA, I think it's going to be that route more than it's going to be he gets drafted in and kind of developed up from there. I don't want to count out Walton at all because, I mean, look at this senior season. Everybody was kind of talking down to him, and he ended up lifting Michigan to a Big Ten tournament championship and a Sweet 16. So, I mean, you don't want to talk down to him, but it's going to be a tough path. I mean, if you have to come in as an undrafted guy or a late second round guy, it's difficult. I'll just put it that way because there are a lot of 6-foot point guards that are really good in college coming out, and it's difficult. I'll just say that, but I'm certainly hoping for the best. And as I said, as far as the impact to Michigan, I think if everyone comes back, that being Simmons, Wagner, and Wilson, I think Michigan's a Big Ten title contender. I don't think they'll be the favorite, but I think they'll be right up there. And if they get like one back or so, they're going to be a top-end Big Ten team. And if they all left, Michigan's going to be in trouble. But yeah. Any thoughts on what it would mean for Michigan though if they kind of get hit and both these guys leave? Or
well, well, and I mean not Walton, Wagner or Wilson are 3 W's here. If Wagner or Wilson return, then yeah, I like Michigan's chances to compete. If both of them return, I really like their chances to compete. But I think we both know who the favorite is going into next season to win the Big Ten. And I mean, if you're not thinking it's Michigan State, then you need to come back to earth because that is the team to beat next year in the Big Ten. Michigan State, no doubt about it. I mean, Miles Bridges coming back. I mean, we've gone through this extensively. So, with Wilson, Wagner, and/or preferably both if you're a Michigan fan, if you're John Beilein, and then exactly what you said about a lot of people were looking down on Derek Walton. A lot of people, were questioning John Beilein earlier, and we've gone through this too. A lot of people were questioning Derek Walton, and then Derek just comes on, has a great conference season. You mentioned, that those his final 10 games. You look at him in the NCAA tournament. I mean, definition of put a team on your back. I mean, DJ and Mo had great performance as well. But that's exactly the thing that I like about Derek, and just like you said, you can't count him out. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. What is he listed? 185. There's a lot of 6 foot, 180, 185, 190, whatever, or what have you. What separates Derek from the rest of those guys? Derek is a guy, I think, that responds best when he's doubted. I think when put and what happened this year, push really did come to shove for Michigan, right? I mean, we were talking. I forgot what the start of the season was. What did they start out like 2-6 or something like that? And then I remember John Beeline talking about a past team that he had at Michigan. It was I forgot what year. I got to go back.
It's probably the Moritz year.
Yeah, they started out 1-6, like 5-6 years ago, whatever, and then that team ended up making the tournament. Long story short was that this team had the ingredients. We saw it. You and I both liked them for a Sweet 16, Elite 8. I think we had both been saying that, once they started kind of getting cooking, and especially in the Big Ten tournament. And but yeah, that was a team, and that was with Derek. I remember John Beeline specifically saying that all Derek needed to do was realize that he was the guy, that he was the best player on the floor, or he was the guy in command, and that was the push, right? And then where did the shove come? Well, Derek, in theory, or metaphorically, however you want to describe it, Derek pushes back, shoves back with one of the greatest senior point guard seasons I think that we've seen out of any Wolverines player. I mean, you take off the uniform, put a different uniform on him. Any school, I think, any fan base would be thrilled to have a point guard who had the type of year that Derek had, especially given the circumstances. So that's why, that's a really long explanation here. That's why don't count out Derek Walton. That's why I like him. That's going to be the separating factor between him just being a 6 foot, 180, 190 pound 4-year point guard, and then a guy who might be able to rise above and do. I mean, just like for instance, I mean, let's look at Kay Felder. I mean, I remember last year he was a foot short of being the number 1 draft pick. Gar Campy, Oakland coach, would joke about. So, what's kept Kay in the mix is his unwillingness to give up,
absolutely
that attitude. And guess what? They're both in Detroit. Don't forget that. I'm sure. I know every city's tough. I know it's Toronto versus everybody, Cleveland versus whatever. Detroit guys, Flint guys, I'm telling you, there's something different about it. You can ask the coaches; they will tell you. Tom Izzo will tell you. John Beeline will tell you. And that's another thing that I think that really will serve Derek well, is he's got that hard ass. Derek's all smiles and very polite on the court. There's a part of Derek I think that a lot of people don't see. He has the killer instinct in him. He does. He's got the cutthroat in him.
I completely agree. And before we jump on and move on, I did want to throw out, for anyone who's interested in the measurements from the combine, I have them all up for the Big Ten guys at btpowerhouse.com. And I'm just going to read off Walton's raw numbers here, just for those who are interested. His height without shoes is 5'11", with shoes 6 foot and 8 inches. So he ranges from about 5'11" to 6'1", depending on whether he has shoes on, and he weighed in at 189. So just for those wondering about Walton, and certainly everybody hopes for the best. But let's dive into this Michigan football stuff and what's going on in Rome.
Well, they're back.
What went on?
I have 2 more guys I want to mention just for NBA Combine.
Oh, okay.
Flint guys, Kyle Kuzma out of Utah, Flint area kid, Bentley. I have some players on my collegiate league team, summer team, that know Kyle. Kyle's been. I feel like not enough people talk about Kyle when they're talking about the Flint basketball scene. It's because he's not local. He's not in the Big Ten. He's way out in Utah. So pay attention to Kyle Kuzma. He's had a hell of an NBA combine. A lot. Fran Fraschilla, guys of that ilk. Those see, I try to use a fancy word. Guys of that ilk. Those high caliber analysts, they like Kyle. Kyle is 6'9", 221 pounds, and he is number 68 prospects, and the final guy, and it's Monte, man. I remember covering his very first, Thomas, I don't know if I ever told you the story, and this is one of my favorite stories to tell. I was job shadowing under Brendan Savage at the Flint Journal. Brendan, longtime Flint Journal writer, still working. He's with M Live, Detroit Red Wings writer. Taught me a lot. I was job shadowing with him, and they were dedicating the Beecher Gym to Mose Lacey, and it was against Flint Northern. It was Beecher Flint Northern, huge rivalry. Yeah. And I just remember seeing Beecher trot out this little skinny kid. I'm telling you, he was all bones, little skinny. I mean, he reminded me, he was built like how, like I was built. I'm like, holy crap. I couldn't tell if he was right-handed, couldn't tell if he was left-handed. No fear in his eyes. And just following him from his freshman year at Beecher, I mean, all he did was win state championships. Monte Morris, one of the more complete point guards I think that you're going to find coming out of this NBA draft, takes incredible care of the ball. Like the past 2 years, he was either the leader or among leaders in assisted turnover ratio. He was at like 5.5 to 1 at one point last year. I remember writing a feature on him for FanRag Sports. So Monte, at 6'3", and I remember talking with his former coach, Mike Williams, we thought that Monte might get a little bit taller because Monte's father, I think, is like 6'9". So we thought that maybe Monte had a chance, get 6'5", 6'6", maybe. It didn't happen. He's 6'3", 175 pounds, obviously some room to get a little bit bigger. But if you want to talk about a guy who can take care of the ball, a guy who has cutthroat, Flint guy, I've seen Monte doing everybody. I mean, you name it during his 4-year career, and they're not playing cupcake schedules. They're not just sticking to the local leagues. They're playing, the powerhouses, Class B's, C's, and A powerhouses out of the Detroit area. The consortiums, schools like that. I mean, they're not screwing around. Mike really got those guys prepared, and Beecher won another state title. So I mean, it's I believe. Let me go. I should know that, but they're a state powerhouse. Don't forget. I have to know that now because I'm like, that's going to bother me all day. But don't forget about Monte. He doesn't have the impressive, height, the stats, whatever. Yeah, Beecher won it. It was their third straight state championship.
Not too bad.
So, yeah. And, Monte is a guy who definitely, set the tone. I mean, he is a legend in Flint. He's he's like a hero in Beecher. Don't forget about Monte. So my advocacy for Monte Morris is now done. You want to talk about football?
Let's jump into football. Let's jump into
football. Okay. Rome trip's over. They had fun. I didn't go. So,
too bad.
Angelique went. I know that Nick Baumgartner from M Live was over there. There were a couple other people, so I'm sure the diehards, they followed that. I mean, here's my major takeaways, and this actually has nothing to do with Rome. This is when I sat down with Matt Godin. Watch out for Carlo Kemp, that D line, Thomas. Michigan is deeper, I think, than a lot of us thought, and I have a column coming up that should run this weekend. I already wrote it. That'll be on FanRag Sports, fanragsports.com, @fanrag_u. Michigan is deeper, I think, than a lot of people thought. And, okay, the counter argument is going to be, well, where's the games played? Where's the statistics? My argument is, look who was in front of them. Then listen to what everybody else is saying about them coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Godin called Carlo Kemp mini Wormley.
Yeah.
You don't get a Chris Wormley. You only get a Chris Wormley every so often, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? There's a mini one coming right after him. How can you, if you're a Michigan fan, you have to like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the basis of the column right there. There's a lot of talent. I mean, Michael Dwumfor, he should factor in the D-line. Aubrey Solomon coming in this fall. Brian Monet, if he stays healthy. Maurice Hurst, and this is funny. I was on Inside the Huddle with Michael Spaff this past week at WTKA with Anthony Broom. So thanks, Michael, for inviting me out there. I had a great time. And he asked us, what were your 5 top players for Michigan coming out of spring? So I wasn't exactly sure what was it just coming out of spring based on spring practices or as a whole. So before I go into that, I want to ask you that. Who are your top 5 Michigan players coming out of spring? You could base it on returning, or you could base it just top 5.
Top 5.
What you saw in spring.
Are we talking like based on their position or just overall importance to the team?
Just overall. Like if you have to name 5 guys off the top of the head, who are they?
I think I'd probably put Hurst number 1. Well,
okay. Well, then
you know what? I'd put Spate 1 just because, like, you gotta have a quarterback. It's so hard to win without a quarterback. Even though I don't think he's the best guy, but like again, just quarterback. But I'd put Hurst 2, and again, accounting just for the Hurst is way better at his position than Spade is at his position, but Spade plays quarterback, so I'm gonna pick the quarterback. Probably after that, probably Mason Cole, Rashawn Gary, just because I think Rashawn Gary is going to be fantastic this season, but we haven't seen him be an absolute destructive force yet. So I'm gonna put him at 4, and there's a lot of probably Chris Evans 5, I would think. Okay. I don't know. It's all off the top of my head here.
And those are and the whole thing was, and it was like I was embarrassed. Anthony was. We both laughed about it because we both rattled off top 5. I go real quick off the top of my head. I go Cole, Gary Spate for my top 3. Devin Bush had a hell of a spring.
Yeah.
So he's in there at number 4. And then I'm kind of trying to think at number 5. And I remember, I think Anthony had mentioned Chris Evans in his top, but we had both forgotten Mo Hurst. And Michael was like, "How'd you forget Mo Hurst?" And we're like, "How'd we forget Mo Hurst?" Like that, yeah. And that's why. That's another thing. That's why. That's kind of part of the reason they kind of sparked it for me. I'm like, okay, they are. And I don't know if you just heard my neighbor's crotch rocket take off there.
Yeah.
It's a motorcycle riding people over there. They love it. At all hours of the night. Anyway, where was I going? Yeah, we didn't have Mo Hurst just did not, and it's weird because Mo Hurst is quietly one of the best D linemen in the country. He is quiet. If you talk to him, Mo Hurst is he's a soft-spoken kind of guy. I remember asking Jim Harbaugh about him last year, and he said that Mo is not a plotter. He's very agile, especially for a guy that size. And Mo told me he played running back in high school, and I was like, "Are you joking? What? No, he wasn't. I didn't know that." And yeah, so he's got quick feet. Yes, Mo Hurst. Mm-hmm. That's this whole conversation is why, because I feel like you could ask 10 people. Mm-hmm. Maybe not everybody has Mo in their top 5. They should.
Yeah.
But I feel like that number 4 and 5. I mean, you could talk. I mean, and really, if we want to base on potential and what we saw in the Orange Bowl, you have to have Chris Evans, I think, or if he's not top 5, he's got to be top 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. Jockey Tellis taking over for Jabril as the Viper there. Khaleke Hudson had a big year last year too, and Anthony was pretty high on Khaleke. I like Khaleke a lot. I want to reserve a little bit of judgment. I haven't seen quite enough of them, but I mean the same could be said for a few other guys too. But I mean, David Long and Lavert Hill, both of those guys were highly praised last season. But look who they were behind. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, they're behind Jordan Lewis, they're behind Channing Stribling, all league guys. So an All-American, one of the greatest corners in Michigan history. Jordan Lewis. You know, I mean, and that's another thing too, as far as I know that 19 for 19, now that Ben Braden has an undrafted free agent deal with the New York Jets. I mean, you're not just losing a bunch of NFL talent. This class is losing some of the greats at their position, right? I mean, we're witnessing the departure of key parts to one of the greatest defensive lines in Michigan history. Mm-hmm. We're witnessing the departure of 2 all-league receivers in J.U. and Amara. We're witnessing the departure of 3 starting all-league offensive linemen, Mags, Kalis, and Ben Braden. Mm-hmm. And then arguably one of the greatest tight ends in Big Ten history. I mean, he's back-to-back tight end of the year. Jake Butt, one of the greatest tight ends in Michigan history.
I mean, he won the Mackey.
What else is there for? You know what I mean? What else is there to do? So I mean, I'm not saying that Michigan's just going to go boom, plug in Mackey guy, boom, plug in Ali guy, everything's all good. But I'm saying Devin Bush, those guys, there's a lot of young guys who maybe have a little bit of proven some stuff, but haven't yet had the chance for it. I mean, and Keith Washington, pay attention to a guy like Keith. I think he's going to crack into the 2 deep. I mean, there are a lot of guys. This recruiting class especially, these aren't guys that they're, the majority of them are, okay, we're going to wait a couple years. I mean, these are guys that are like, okay, well, redshirt you 1 year and you're going to be ready to go as a redshirt freshman. Or some of these guys are going to be ready to go as true freshmen. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tariq Black. Those guys are going to be ready to go as true freshmen. And I remember when Wilton Speight, I asked Wilton after the spring game, kind of what he thought, like what is the difference between like a college receiver? Yeah, they're good, but from going from high school to college, and a lot of it is just, I asked him, I'm like, is it the way that they catch a ball? Because look, you can kind of tell sometimes how good someone is, maybe like, maybe by the way that they throw a baseball, maybe the way they shoot. You know what I mean? If you see they have good form, that kind of you could kind of look. So that's kind of what I base on a little bit. There's looking at Donovan and Tariq, they look comfortable. They don't look like they're hesitant. And that's what I was asking Wilton. Like, do they have a certain look? Like, can you tell like the way that they approach a ball? Like, bam, these guys, they have it. Yeah. It's going to take some time. They have it. And again, I think another strength of Michigan, having Wilton. I know there's people divided on Wilton Speight. I feel like I know that you are. I'm not. I'm all in on Speight. I've been all in on Speight. He is the guy until proven otherwise. I'm not saying that Brandon Peters didn't have a good spring. I'm not saying that Brandon Peters isn't going to play and that he's a bum. Brandon Peters is a very good quarterback. He's going to be a very good starter next year, is what I think. So you factor in all of that. And this is the first year. Yes, they just lost a ton of NFL level talent, but this is the first year that they're having returning starting quarterback. I don't know how much that's going to really matter because, I mean, we're, like I said, that offensive line, you're missing 3 guys on that offensive line. So that's good. I feel like that's going to be a concern a little bit. I mean, I really like Mason Cole, whether he plays center or left tackle. I like Ben Bredeson, Mike Onwin, and Ben, as a left tackle. Maybe left guard. I know that Patrick Kugler and Cesar Ruiz got some reps at center. Sounds like Michael Onwenu is the guy for right guard. We'll see if Jawan Bushell-Beatty, probably right tackle. So I mean, I'm trying to kind of think of a little 2 deep here just because, and that's those are kind of my thoughts. But like I said, at the end of the day, there's so many people that you can reference. There's so much, whether it's a little swath of information or whether it's a a little stretch of games and some good springs. Michigan has pieces.
Oh, I completely agree. And there's just really like 3 things I wanted to respond with. First, I'm actually on the Speight train. I think he's going to be the starter. I was just saying that, like, I think Maurice Hurst is better at being a defensive tackle.
No, I got that. Yeah,
I absolutely think Speight's going to be the starter. I think he's going to start every game next fall, barring injury or some off the field thing, which hopefully nothing like that happens. But and then the other, you were talking about how Michigan obviously had just a plethora of NFL draft picks this year, just so many big time prospects, and the fact that like, just because some of these guys haven't played doesn't mean they aren't good. I mean, when you're behind an All-American at a position, at least on paper, that's the best guy in the country at that position. So you could theoretically be the second best guy in the country and not see the field. I know that's probably not realistic, but in theory. And the one that pops up to me is
very good. You could be very good and not see the field. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the guy that pops up to me is Bunting. Because every time he's gone in, I thought he's been pretty solid. Maybe he hasn't been the best blocker, but really nice pass catcher. And I think we saw that in the Orange Bowl when Jake Butt unfortunately went down. And he's a guy, I think the only reason he didn't play more is because Jake Butt existed on the team.
Right. I mean, if you're a tight end at Michigan and you're behind a guy named Jake Butt, you might as well prepare to park yourself on the bench. I mean, that's just how it is.
I mean, he could be an all Big Ten level tight end, which I'm not saying he's going to be next year, and not play because Jake Butt's an All-American caliber tight end. But I think there are more guys. To me, he's the prime example. But obviously, you talked about some of those secondary guys. You talked about some of those receivers. And the other thing I wanted to hit on, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts. I want to say 2 or 3 podcasts ago, I went on this extensive rant about Michigan's offensive line and about how I truly believe that has been the one thing that has held them back like the last 5 years. Not the only thing, but I think it's been the biggest issue. And to me, like you look at that 2013 season when they started, I want to say 6-0, they beat Notre Dame, and then they lost that like triple overtime game or whatever to Penn State, and then just collapsed down the stretch. And the offensive line was just killed that team. That team, I think, would have been decent had they had a decent offensive line. And I mean, last year, if Michigan had a good offensive line, they would have beaten Iowa. They probably would have beaten Ohio State. And I mean, at that point, you're 12-0, and who knows who you get there or afterward, I should say. But what was your reaction to the fact that none of the linemen got drafted? Because I know they've signed deals now, but there was talk that, Magnuson might slide into the draft. Maybe Braden might get a flyer at the end. Did you think that was kind of an indictment of the offensive line last year?
I mean, I think, yeah, you can't really look at it any other way. Every other position group got drafted or got a deal, right? I mean, a running back, wide receiver, D lineman, linebackers. I mean, Ben Gettien, what? He went in like the 4th round. That surprised me. That surprised me. Minnesota Vikings, right? He was a fourth round. I thought that Eric Magnuson had the best shot out of all of them. Mm-hmm. I think that Eric is the most complete lineman out of those 3. I think that I remember talking to him before the draft. I read several mock drafts. He was like a third, 4th round projection. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy. That to me is a surprise. If you're a 3rd or 4th round projection and you slide completely out of the draft, that is a bit of a surprise to me. That was the one surprise for me for Michigan's drafted that considering the offensive linemen, that none of them got drafted. I figured that Magnuson would be the one, and then Ben Gettien. I know that you didn't ask me, but Ben Gettien would be another surprise to me, being how early he went. And this isn't anything against Ben Gettien, but I mean Ben never blew me away. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I thought, a linebacker, typically a pretty deep position. To take him in the 4th round, maybe they see something that nobody else saw. Mm-hmm. But good for him. But yeah, that was a surprise. And Magnuson not being drafted, yes, that was a surprise. And yes, not one of 3 eligible offensive linemen not being, skipped over in the draft. Indictment. Maybe. Does it say? Does it say that there wasn't a lot of confidence in their offensive linemen? Why? How can it not say that?
And I don't want to act like they're bad players because, again, I know I talk about it all the time. Like, getting drafted is really, really difficult. So, like, I don't want to act like it's like, oh, geez, if you're a starting lineman, you should just walk right in and be a 1st-round pick or something. I'm not trying to argue that at all. I just think, these guys were, Kyle Kalis was a 5-star incoming recruit. And I know we're going back like 5 years now, but these were big-time prospects. And the fact that during this entire group, none of them got drafted this year, I thought was told a lot about last year's line that I think the all Big Ten teams and some of this evaluations did not tell the story on. Because I think Michigan had a very experienced line last year. I mean, obviously, they had one position that was really young out of the 5, but they were a really experienced line, a lot of returning starts, a lot of snaps. But frankly, I just, guys like Magnuson, Kalis, I don't think they ever had that extra gear, which again, I'm not saying they weren't really good players for Michigan. I mean, they were very productive during their careers in terms of like plays, but I thought this was a real sign of what was the issue with the team last year in terms of getting over that final hump, getting past Iowa, getting past Ohio State. And I think if you're a Michigan fan, when you're looking at the fact that 19 guys you said got deals. So, I mean, you're talking about almost an entire starting lineup worth of guys moved to the NFL. I think one thing that has to be a little bit encouraging is like, well, these guys got signed to deals, but you're not losing first-round picks on the line. I guess I think if you're trying to look at it optimistically, that's how I try it.
Well, and here's another thing too, because the offensive line, just by virtue of everything that you just said, that is going to be a focal point, from right now through the summer, heading into fall camp, all throughout that. I do think that there is one advantage, though, and if Michigan could get its running game going, which I know that you need an offensive lineman for it, but I remember Chris Evans telling me that Jay Harbaugh, who's now coaching running back, sees it is kind of geared more to a smaller playmaking running back rather than where Tyrone Wheatley, being a bigger back, being the power guy, that was kind of his thing. I remember Chris saying, it's like he's seeing the game a little. Jay Harbaugh sees it through the lens of like a smaller running back. So maybe that helps with the playmaking aspect, because I do remember as well, Khalid Hill. He'll be a fullback, and he got some carries last year. We saw the touchdowns, and but pass protection is going to be big for him because he kind of helped compensate for that offensive line. So I think where there's going to be an advantage is if Michigan can get something going, kind of maybe spread out the running backs a little bit. Maybe we're going to see some little dumps to Chris. He does have some hands. Maybe throw Eddie McDune back there. I think that he could probably double. Use him in a running back role. Athletic, not obviously, short yardage or anything, but you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then having Wilton is good under pressure, and this was something that Michael Spath brought up last week. Wilton can improvise, and I remember Pep Hamilton, the new passing game coordinator, has said something similar, that Wilton is good under duress, and that's what he likes about him. So with all those things considered, let's say that the offensive line will be a liability, or it's going to take some time. Wilt can scramble. They'll have some little dump-off options. They'll have Khalid back there to help alleviate some pressure if the offensive line doesn't get it done. And if you can build some chemistry, I know it's a lot of ifs, but it's not like it's impossible. It's not like those scenarios, aren't there. You know where I'm going? So
absolutely.
I mean, there's concern, but at the same time, I think there's, going to be some quick athletic pieces that's going to help compensate for that. And, maybe he's not going to have time to stand in the pocket. He had a little bit of time last year to stand in the pocket. He's going to have to roll out, throw on the run a little bit. He'll have some guys who can do that.
And, one thing that I did want to note, and I'm sure, in the course of the next couple of months, we'll get into this more, but Michigan starts with Florida, but after that, they're going to get essentially a month without too many massive defensive challenges, at least on paper, because we never know how things are going to end up next season. But, you get Florida, obviously, in Dallas, which Florida is projected to have a great defense, so that's going to be a huge challenge for the offensive line. But afterwards, Cincinnati at home, Air Force at home, Purdue on the road, bye week, Michigan State at home, which I know we've talked about. I don't know. I think their offense is going to come back a lot this year, but I think the defense is still going to struggle.
Michigan will beat Michigan State this year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we'll get into that as down the line, but in terms of offensive line, what they're going to see, I don't think that's going to be a massive challenge for them. And then at Indiana, which Indiana's defense was pretty good last year. And so that could actually be a sneaky big challenge for the line. And then obviously you move into Penn State. So from there on out, things will get difficult. But
yeah, that next week, that's the game I'm looking at right there, October 21st at Beaver Stadium, Happy Valley, Penn State. Yes, that'll be a big one. And they got to play Wisconsin too. So I mean, last year.
Yeah, I mean those are going to be huge challenges. My only point is that, if you can skate through that Florida game somehow, you're going to get about almost a month and a half of season to kind of get your act together, at least for the offensive line. Because again, as I said, I think Michigan State will be better. I don't know. I'm sure you agree, but I think most of that improvement is going to come on the offensive side of the ball and not the defensive side of the ball, which I think in terms of the offensive line, that's obviously good news for them as they go through some of these growing pains we're talking about.
Well, and it's like when we say better, because 3-9, you can't really get any worse than that, right? So better, 4-8, 5-7. Okay, I'll go that far, but I don't think Michigan State's going to be. And we'll save that. I don't think Michigan State's going to be good at all. That's just what. And plus, we don't know who. We're still wondering who are they. I know nobody's saying. We're not. Michigan State suing ESPN for the FOIA request and all that other stuff.
That's actually something I wanted to talk about briefly.
I'm not saying anybody's name. I'm like, as soon as I hear about people getting sued for doing their job, for trying to report, I'm like, whoa, okay.
No, I actually wanted to talk about that for a second because I think some of the headlines were misleading on that. So I'll put on my lawyer hat here for a second. But so what happens is MSU requested the records from the police department on this alleged sexual assault. As we said, the details have yet to be released of the nature, extent, who's involved. But they requested the police records and brought them in, and the police told them you cannot release these records. So ESPN FOIA'd the records, and MSU said, we can't turn these over because of the police. Like we got these from the police. These aren't our own records, and they told us we can't release them. So what MSU did is they sued ESPN, but they just got it in front of a judge so that they have to make a ruling as to whether they can release these documents or not. So because as people may remember, ESPN had a huge FOIA lawsuit against MSU in the past and won. Yep. So MSU is a little bit afraid of, at least this is my speculation here, but I'm guessing MSU is a little afraid of getting sued again. So they just want the judge to make the decision, and they don't want to have to make the decision as to whether to release these or not. But I just wanted to throw out some background details on that.
And thank you for clarifying. That's why you're a lawyer. And we'll get that's kind of the a little advantage too, like when it comes to sports law and stuff. And I follow it, but Thomas is an actual lawyer, so this isn't any like, okay, I think I read, like, he's a lawyer. He knows how the processes go. So real quick before we let you guys go on this beautiful Saturday, because batting practice is calling my name, I want to go over real quick Michigan's 2018 class. Lots of offers out there. I'll do something maybe over the week or next week, kind of just skimming over all the offers name by name. But I just want to go right now with commits. Michigan has 8 commits, number 15 in the nation, 6 in the Big Ten. It's early in the process, of course, but this kid Emil Ekiyor, 6'2", 322-pound offensive guard, 4-star out of Cathedral, Indianapolis. Watch out for him. I used to live in Indianapolis. I keep in contact with my favorite teacher of all time, Mr. Akers. He's a longtime area football coach. He knows Indianapolis sports better than a lot of people. Especially when it comes to the high school scene. And Mr. Akers, if you're watching, thanks for the tip. He's been telling me about Emil for about 3 years now. And he's like, wow. Watch out for the kid. Watch out for this kid. Cathedral kid. And so, yes, watch out. Mr. Akers says so, and I'm fully co-signing and endorsing that. Miles Sims, He just committed back in April 7th, and he is a 3-star or 4-star cornerback, rather. Otis Reese, 4-star outside linebacker. He's been on board since June of last year. Aiden Hutchinson, 4-star defensive end. He's been on board since February of this year. Joe Milton, that was the big commit that a lot of people were looking for. 2018 class quarterback. He just committed May 7th. A week ago, 4-star pro styler, 6'6", 222 pounds. I know all the Michigan fans are oohing and eyeing, and they just cannot wait for this kid. And that's par for the course when you're a big-time quarterback recruit, especially at Michigan, which is just stacking these quarterbacks like, okay, 4-star, 5-star, 4-star, 4-star, here we go. Christian Turner, he committed back April 10th. He is a 3-star running back out of Georgia. I like those Georgia kids. Jermon Green and his brother, there's Jamon, Gemon, and then I think it's German, German. It's not German. I'm pretty sure he doesn't say it German. I think it's German. So German and German, both 3-star quarterbacks. They are twins, 6'2", German 168, Jamon 165. So that is your Michigan Wolverines 2018 football class for the moment. And again, 8 guys committed. Number 6 ranking in the Big Ten, number 15 overall in the country. So we want to thank everybody for listening. And again, we're both very, very excited about what the next steps. We'll have new YouTube channels, new iTunes, Stitcher, all of that stuff, kind of revamping everything. And the Sports in the Mitten site on FanRag will be put to use. It is complete now, so I'm excited about that. Thomas is excited about that. And again, want to thank Tim and Keith at Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor, 808 State Street. They hooked me up. If you guys didn't get a chance to check out my YouTube channel, I sat down with Matt Godin this past week. We ate a bunch of food. His girlfriend Brooke showed up, and she told me about his broken finger. I didn't even know about it, and
oh wow,
it was kind of fun. We ate a ton of food. Looking forward, I'll be doing some food and football with graduated guys here and there throughout the season and throughout the summer, and whoever else I can get. Whoever else Michigan, well, I don't have to ask Michigan for the graduated guys, but whoever I can get, whether it's a current or a former guy, to come eat food and talk football with me at Mr. Spots, I will certainly do that. So I'm Adam Biggers, Michigan State beat writer for FanRag Sports. Follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. It's fanragsports.com. On Twitter at FanRag_U. Sportsinthemitten.com, and the podcast is at Mitten. We changed it. What is it now? At Mitten Sports. MI.
Yeah, Mitten Sports MI, I believe.
Man, I don't even know your own Twitter handle.
I'm Thomas Bendit. I'm the manager of BT Powerhouse, which is a Big Ten basketball blog for SB Nation. You can follow me on Twitter at TBendit. And I did want to add one final thought on that Michigan 2018 class. One thing fans might want to pay a little attention to is it is a very nationally based class. 8 commitments right now, only 1 from the state of Michigan, only 2 from the Midwest. So if you're one of the people who constantly yells about Michigan recruiting Florida and stuff, this class is right up your alley.
Yeah, and again, Georgia's been very good to Michigan. New Jersey has been very good to Michigan. There's some Jersey kids in the 2017 class, or Drew Singleton, rather. What do I call him? Drew Singleton from Paramus, linebacker coming in. So I mean, yeah, there is a lot. And another final note, then, since I want a final note too. And speaking of Paramus, former Paramus quarterback Alan Walters is a really good friend of Rashawn Gary. He was coached by Chris Partridge. He's at the Petty School in New Jersey now. He's committed to Vanderbilt. I like this kid. I saw him at A4. I've seen a lot of his tape. Great arm. He's got the size. Alan Walters, remember the name. Michigan has offered him, but he did commit to Vanderbilt. I'm not sure, as far as the lines of communication are concerned, if there's been any contact, but he's a guy that I just kind of keep in the back of my mind. Just, it seems logical. Mm-hmm. He was offered, right?
Yeah.
And the 2018 QB. So keep an eye out. Not saying anything's going to happen with him, but I do feel like if Michigan wants to get another quarterback, I do feel like Alan Walters is a pretty solid option. So again, thanks for watching. And before I have I have to make sure. How do I not even know? Because it was at SITM Big and Kid for the longest time. It's Mitten Sports MI, okay? There it is. At Mitten Sports MI, sportsinthemitten.com. I'm Adam. He's Thomas. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch up with you next time.